difficulty shows what men are. Epictetus. Most people think discipline is about following a set of rules, a rigid schedule, a prepackaged system. They believe it's about restriction, denial, and forced adherence to external standards. That's a comfortable lie, a self-deception whispered by those who fear the true nature of discipline. It's a shallow understanding, a pale imitation of the real thing. We're not interested in that. True discipline isn't found in the perfectly planned day or the flawlessly executed routine. It isn't about appearing disciplined. It's about being disciplined in the face of chaos, when everything falls apart, when your carefully constructed world crumbles around you. Discipline is forged in crisis. It's the unwavering steel that remains after the fire has consumed everything else. It is the mental fortress you build when under siege, the unyielding resolve you discover when pushed beyond your perceived limits. It's not about preventing the storm. It's about mastering yourself within it. This isn't about avoiding hardship. It's about transforming hardship into strength. It's about choosing to stand firm when every fiber of your being screams for you to collapse. Discipline isn't a habit, it's a reflex, honed through relentless pressure, sharpened by the constant threat of failure. It's not a set of instructions, it's a state of being, a fundamental restructuring of your inner landscape. It's the difference between those who break under pressure and those who are tempered by it, the line that separates the defeated from the dominant. You do find discipline. You create it, piece by agonizing peace in the crucible of adversity. The world will throw everything it has at you: setbacks, betrayals, failures, and crushing defeats. Those who lack true discipline will crumble, will seek excuses, will blame external forces for their shortcomings. But you, armed with the discipline forged in crisis, will not only endure but will emerge stronger, more resilient, and more determined than ever before. This is not some feel-good mantra or motivational slogan. This is a brutal truth. The discipline you cultivate in the face of crisis will define you. It will determine your success, your survival, and your ultimate legacy. Accept the challenge. Embrace the chaos. Forge yourself in the fire. Discipline, born from the heart of crisis, is a psychological firewall erected against the relentless assaults of the world. It's the internalization of order amidst chaos, the cognitive restructuring that allows you to maintain focus and purpose when your instincts scream for escape. Understand this: your mind is a battlefield. Every day, forces seek to destabilize it. Fear, doubt, procrastination, and the siren song of instant gratification. Discipline is your strategic defense, the carefully planned fortifications that prevent these invaders from breaching your inner sanctum. It's not merely about willpower. It's about cognitive control, the ability to consciously direct your thoughts and actions, even when your emotions are in turmoil. This requires a deep understanding of your own psychological vulnerabilities, the specific triggers that lead to distraction, self-sabotage, and ultimately, failure. You must become a student of your own mind, identifying your weaknesses and developing strategies to counter them. This is not a passive process. It requires constant vigilance, relentless self-assessment, and a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths about yourself. Think of it as psychological warfare against your own self-destructive tendencies. You are both the general and the foot soldier, responsible for devising the strategies and executing them with unwavering precision. Every act of discipline, no matter how small, strengthens your mental armor, making you more resistant to future attacks. Every time you choose to focus on a difficult task instead of succumbing to distraction, you reinforce the neural pathways that support discipline. Every time you push yourself beyond your comfort zone, you expand your capacity for resilience. This is not about becoming a robot devoid of emotion. It's about mastering your emotions, using them as fuel to propel you forward, rather than allowing them to paralyze you. It's about recognizing that fear, anger, and doubt are inevitable, but they do not have to control you. You can acknowledge their presence, understand their origins, and then consciously choose to act in accordance with your values and goals. The psychology of crisis-forged discipline is also deeply intertwined with the concept of delayed gratification. In a world obsessed with instant results, The ability to defer immediate pleasure in pursuit of long-term goals is a superpower. It requires a fundamental shift in perspective, a willingness to sacrifice short-term comfort for the sake of long-term fulfillment. This is not about denying yourself pleasure. It's about understanding that true satisfaction comes from achieving meaningful goals, from pushing yourself to become the best version of yourself. And that often requires enduring discomfort, resisting temptations, and making difficult choices. Furthermore, discipline in crisis necessitates a relentless focus on the present moment. When faced with overwhelming challenges, it's easy to get lost in the anxieties of the future or the regrets of the past. But true resilience lies in the ability to stay grounded in the here and now, to focus on what you can control, and to take decisive action. This requires a practice of mindfulness, the ability to observe your thoughts and feelings without judgment, and to consciously choose where to direct your attention. It's about recognizing that the only moment that truly matters is the present one, and that every action you take in this moment will shape your future. Crisis-forged discipline also demands a high degree of self-awareness. You must understand your strengths and weaknesses, your values and beliefs, and your purpose in life. This self-knowledge provides a compass to guide you through turbulent times, helping you to make decisions that are aligned with your true self. It also allows you to identify your blind spots, the areas where you are most vulnerable to manipulation and self-deception. Without this self-awareness, you are like a ship without a rudder, tossed about by the winds of circumstance. Discipline, therefore, is not just about action. It's about introspection, self-reflection, and a relentless pursuit of self-knowledge. Finally, remember that the discipline forged in crisis is not a solitary endeavor. While the internal struggle is ultimately yours alone, you do not have to face it in isolation. Seek out mentors, role models, and allies who can provide support, guidance, and accountability. Surround yourself with people who embody the values of discipline, resilience, and perseverance. Learn from their experiences, emulate their habits, and draw strength from their example. Because in the end, the bonds we forge in adversity are often the strongest and most enduring. And it is these bonds that will help us to weather the storms of life and emerge stronger on the other side. Consider the story of James Stockdale, a United States Navy admiral and aviator. During the Vietnam War, Stockdale was shot down over North Vietnam and became a prisoner of war for over 7 years. He was held in the infamous Hanoi Hilton, where he endured brutal torture, starvation, and solitary confinement. Stockdale had no certainty of survival, no idea when or if he would ever be released, and little to no communication with the outside world. Yet, despite these unimaginable hardships, Stockdale not only survived but also emerged as a leader and a source of inspiration for his fellow prisoners. His resilience, his mental fortitude, and his unwavering commitment to his values are a testament to the power of discipline forged in crisis. What's crucial to understand is that Stockdale wasn't simply reacting to the circumstances. He was actively shaping his response, choosing to embody certain principles, and using his mind as a weapon against his captors. Stockdale faced a situation where the immediate physical reality was overwhelmingly negative. There was no escaping the torture, the deprivation, or the constant threat of death. Many prisoners succumbed to despair, losing hope and eventually their will to live. Stockdale, however, refused to let the external circumstances dictate his internal state. He understood that while he could not control what was happening to him, he could control how he responded to it. This is the core principle of crisis-forged discipline, accepting the reality of the situation, no matter how brutal, and then choosing to act in a way that aligns with your values and goals. Stockdale's first act of discipline was to create an internal framework for survival. He established a code of conduct for the prisoners, emphasizing resistance, communication, and maintaining a sense of dignity. He knew that if they could maintain a semblance of order and purpose, they would be better equipped to withstand the psychological warfare that their captors were waging. This code was not just a set of rules, it was a mental construct, a way of imposing order on chaos and finding meaning in suffering. It was a weapon against despair, a tool for maintaining morale, and a symbol of defiance. Moreover, Stockdale recognized the importance of psychological warfare. He understood that his captors were not just trying to break their bodies, they were trying to break their spirits. They used isolation, misinformation, and psychological manipulation to sow discord and weaken their resolve. Stockdale countered these tactics by developing his own strategies of psychological resistance. He used subtle forms of communication, such as tapping on walls, to relay messages and maintain a sense of solidarity among the prisoners. He deliberately disobeyed his captors, even at great personal risk, to demonstrate that they could not completely control him. He engaged in acts of self-sabotage, such as deliberately injuring himself, to avoid being used for propaganda purposes. These actions were not impulsive acts of defiance. They were carefully calculated moves in a psychological chess game, designed to undermine the enemy's control and maintain his own mental equilibrium. Furthermore, Stockdale embraced the power of self-reflection and introspection. He used the isolation of his prison cell to examine his own values, beliefs, and motivations. He meditated, prayed, and engaged in mental exercises to strengthen his mind and maintain his connection to his inner self. He understood that in order to lead others through adversity, he first had to master himself. This process of self-discovery was not easy. It involved confronting his own fears, weaknesses, and limitations, but it also allowed him to tap into a deep well of inner strength and resilience. He emerged from this process with a clearer understanding of his purpose and a renewed commitment to his values. This inner clarity became a source of unwavering confidence and a beacon of hope for his fellow prisoners. What's important to grasp is that Stockdale's discipline was not merely about enduring pain or suppressing emotions. It was about actively shaping his experience, choosing to embody certain principles, and using his mind as a tool for survival. He accepted the reality of his situation without succumbing to despair. He established a code of conduct to maintain order and purpose. He engaged in psychological warfare to undermine his captors. He practiced self-reflection to strengthen his inner self. He embodied the values of courage, resilience, and integrity, and he emerged from his ordeal as a leader, a hero, and a testament to the power of the human spirit. Stockdale's story serves as a powerful illustration of how crisis can forge discipline, transforming ordinary individuals into extraordinary leaders. It demonstrates that even in the face of unimaginable adversity, we have the power to choose our response, to shape our destiny, and to emerge stronger on the other side. The discipline he exhibited was not a passive acceptance of fate, but an active assertion of his will, a testament to the indomitable spirit that resides within each of us, waiting to be awakened by the fires of adversity. The trap lies in believing discipline is an inherent trait, a gift bestowed upon the fortunate few. It's easy to look at figures like Stockdale and conclude that they were simply born with an extraordinary capacity for resilience, that their strength was preordained. This is a dangerous misconception because it absolves you of the responsibility to cultivate your own discipline. It allows you to dismiss your own shortcomings as simply being a matter of genetic lottery, a fate you are powerless to change. The truth is that discipline is not a gift, it is a skill. Like any skill, it can be learned, honed, and perfected through consistent practice and unwavering commitment. The weak, however, fall prey to the illusion of inherent talent. They see the finished product, the unwavering resolve, the steely determination, and they fail to recognize the years of training, the countless hours of self-denial, the relentless pursuit of self-improvement that went into forging that strength. They focus on the outcome, not the process, and in doing so, they condemn themselves to a life of mediocrity. They remain trapped in a cycle of excuses, blaming their lack of discipline on everything but their own choices. They convince themselves that they are simply not cut out for greatness, that they lack the innate qualities necessary to achieve their goals. And in doing so, they relinquish their power, they surrender their potential, and they resign themselves to a life of unfulfilled dreams. This is the insidious nature of the trap. It preys on your insecurities, it amplifies your doubts, and it convinces you that you are incapable of achieving what you truly desire. Another facet of this trap is the seductive allure of comfort and convenience. Modern society is designed to cater to our every whim, to provide instant gratification, and to minimize any form of discomfort. We are bombarded with advertisements that promise effortless solutions, quick fixes, and shortcuts to success. This constant barrage of temptations erodes our willpower, weakens our resolve, and makes us increasingly vulnerable to the siren song of immediate pleasure. The path of discipline, on the other hand, is inherently challenging and uncomfortable. It requires us to delay gratification, to push ourselves beyond our comfort zones, and to confront our deepest fears and insecurities. It demands that we make sacrifices, that we prioritize long-term goals over short-term pleasures, and that we embrace the pain and discomfort that inevitably accompany growth. The weak are unwilling to make these sacrifices. They prioritize immediate comfort over long-term success. They choose the path of least resistance, and they allow themselves to be seduced by the illusion of effortless achievement. They fail to understand that true discipline is not about avoiding discomfort, but about embracing it, about using it as fuel to propel themselves forward. They remain trapped in a perpetual cycle of seeking pleasure and avoiding pain, and in doing so, they forfeit their potential for greatness. Furthermore, the weak are often crippled by a fear of failure. They are so afraid of making mistakes, of falling short of expectations, or of being judged by others that they become paralyzed by inaction. They avoid taking risks, they shy away from challenges, and they cling to the familiar and the comfortable. They convince themselves that it is better to remain safe and secure than to risk failure and humiliation. This fear of failure is a self-fulfilling prophecy. By avoiding challenges, they deprive themselves of the opportunity to learn and grow. They become stagnant, complacent, and increasingly incapable of adapting to change. They lack the resilience to bounce back from setbacks, the courage to persevere in the face of adversity, and the unwavering belief in their own abilities that is essential for achieving success. Discipline, on the other hand, requires us to embrace failure as an inevitable part of the learning process. It demands that we view mistakes not as setbacks, but as opportunities for growth. It encourages us to take risks, to push ourselves beyond our limits, and to learn from our failures. It empowers us to develop the resilience, the courage, and the self-belief necessary to overcome any obstacle. The weak, however, remain trapped in their fear of failure, and in doing so, they condemn themselves to a life of unfulfilled potential. The final and perhaps most insidious aspect of the trap is the lack of a clear and compelling purpose. Without a strong sense of direction, without a deeply held belief in something greater than themselves, the weak lack the motivation to persevere through the inevitable challenges and setbacks that life throws their way. They drift aimlessly through life, pursuing fleeting pleasures and superficial goals, without ever truly understanding what they are working towards. They lack the inner compass that guides them through the storms of life, the unwavering conviction that sustains them through the darkest of times, and the burning passion that fuels their relentless pursuit of excellence. Discipline, on the other hand, is born from purpose. It is fueled by a deep and unwavering commitment to a cause, a goal, or a set of values that transcends personal desires. It is sustained by a burning passion, an unshakable belief in one's abilities, and an unwavering determination to achieve the impossible. It is the driving force that propels individuals to overcome obstacles, to persevere through adversity, and to achieve greatness. The weak, however, lack this sense of purpose, and in its absence, they remain trapped in a cycle of mediocrity, destined to live lives of unfulfilled potential. They allow themselves to be swayed by external influences, to be distracted by fleeting temptations, and to be derailed by minor setbacks. They fail to grasp that true discipline is not simply about following rules or adhering to schedules, but about aligning one's actions with one's deepest values and pursuing one's purpose with unwavering determination. The path to forging discipline is not easy, but it is the only path that leads to true fulfillment and lasting success. Recognizing and avoiding these traps is the first step towards unlocking your inner potential and building an unbreakable mental framework. The strategy for forging discipline in crisis demands a cold, calculated approach, one that recognizes the inherent vulnerability of the human psyche under pressure and exploits it to our advantage. We must become masters of our own minds, architects of our own resilience, and strategists in the war against our own weaknesses. This is not about positive thinking or self-affirmations. It's about understanding the raw, untamed nature of our inner landscape and learning to navigate its treacherous terrain. It requires a detached, almost clinical perspective, the ability to observe our own thoughts and emotions as if they belong to someone else. This allows us to identify the patterns of self-sabotage, the limiting beliefs, and the destructive habits that hold us back from reaching our full potential. Only then can we begin to dismantle these internal obstacles and rebuild ourselves into the disciplined, unwavering individuals we aspire to be. The first step in this strategic approach is ruthless self-assessment. We must confront our weaknesses head-on, without flinching, without making excuses, and without seeking comfort in self-deception. This requires brutal honesty, a willingness to acknowledge our flaws and shortcomings, and a commitment to taking responsibility for our own actions. This is not an exercise in self-flagellation, but rather a process of objective evaluation designed to identify the areas where we need to improve and to develop a plan for achieving our goals. We must ask ourselves the hard questions. What are my biggest weaknesses? What are my limiting beliefs? What are the habits that are holding me back? And most importantly, what am I willing to do to change? The answers to these questions will form the foundation of our strategic plan. Once we have a clear understanding of our weaknesses, we can begin to develop a strategy for overcoming them. This involves setting clear, specific, and measurable goals, breaking them down into smaller, more manageable steps, and creating a system of accountability to ensure that we stay on track. It also requires developing a deep understanding of our own psychological triggers, the situations, people, and thoughts that tend to lead to self-destructive behavior. By identifying these triggers, we can learn to anticipate them, to avoid them, or to develop strategies for managing them effectively. This is not about suppressing our emotions, but about learning to control them, to channel them, and to use them to our advantage. Another crucial element of this strategy is the cultivation of mental toughness. This involves developing the ability to withstand pressure, to overcome adversity, and to maintain focus in the face of distractions. It requires practicing discomfort, pushing ourselves beyond our comfort zones, and learning to embrace the challenges that life throws our way. This can be achieved through a variety of methods, such as physical training, mindfulness meditation, or simply by deliberately seeking out situations that make us uncomfortable. The goal is to build resilience, to develop the mental fortitude that allows us to persevere through the toughest of times. This mental toughness is not about being fearless, but about learning to manage our fear, to use it as a source of motivation, and to prevent it from paralyzing us. Furthermore, we must learn to master the art of delayed gratification. In a world of instant gratification, the ability to resist temptation and to focus on long-term goals is a rare and valuable skill. This requires developing a strong sense of self-control, the ability to postpone immediate pleasure in favor of future rewards. It also requires cultivating a deep understanding of our own values, the principles that guide our decisions and actions. By aligning our actions with our values, we can create a sense of purpose that transcends fleeting desires and motivates us to stay focused on our goals, even when the going gets tough. This is not about denying ourselves pleasure, but about prioritizing our goals and making conscious choices that align with our long-term vision. The The strategic approach to discipline also involves creating a supportive environment, one that reinforces our goals and helps us to stay on track. This may involve surrounding ourselves with people who share our values, joining a support group, or simply creating a physical space that is conducive to productivity and focus. It also involves eliminating distractions, minimizing exposure to negative influences, and creating a routine that supports our goals. The environment we create can have a profound impact on our behavior, so it is essential to design it in a way that promotes discipline and helps us to achieve our full potential. This is not about isolating ourselves from the world, but about creating a sanctuary where we can focus on our goals and cultivate our inner strength. Finally, the strategy for forging discipline requires a relentless commitment to continuous improvement. This means constantly seeking out new knowledge, learning from our mistakes, and refining our approach based on experience. It also means being willing to adapt to changing circumstances, to adjust our goals as needed, and to embrace the uncertainty of life. The path to discipline is not a linear one, but rather a cyclical process of learning, growing, and evolving. It requires a growth mindset, the belief that our abilities are not fixed but can be developed through dedication and hard work. This is not about achieving perfection, but about striving for excellence, about constantly pushing ourselves to be better than we were yesterday. The Machiavellian approach to discipline is not for the faint of heart, but for those who are willing to confront their weaknesses, to take control of their minds, and to forge themselves into weapons of unwavering resolve. Consider the Roman Empire. Its legions, renowned for their unparalleled discipline, didn't emerge from comfort and ease. They were forged in the crucible of constant warfare, relentless expansion, and internal strife. Each campaign, each siege, each desperate defense against barbarian hordes served as a brutal training ground, hammering soldiers into unbreakable instruments of the state. The empire's success wasn't simply a matter of superior tactics or weaponry. It was the unwavering discipline of its fighting force, a discipline born not from theoretical lectures but from the stark realities of survival. Think of the Punic Wars, the agonizing defeats at Cannae and Lake Trasimene. These weren't just military setbacks, they were psychological assaults that threatened to shatter the Roman spirit. Yet, from the ashes of these disasters, a new level of discipline arose. Leaders like Scipio Africanus understood that victory wasn't just about outmaneuvering the enemy on the battlefield. It was about dominating the internal landscape of their own soldiers, instilling an unwavering belief in the Roman cause, and forging a mental resilience that could withstand any hardship. The Roman system of training, the constant drills, the rigorous demands placed on soldiers, weren't merely about physical conditioning. They were about building mental fortitude, about cultivating a mindset of obedience, resilience, and unwavering commitment to the task at hand. Each obstacle overcome, each hardship endured, strengthened the collective resolve of the legions, transforming them into a force that could conquer and control vast territories. The parallels to our own lives are undeniable. We, too, face constant battles, not necessarily on physical battlefields, but in the arena of our own minds. The challenges we encounter, the setbacks we experience, can either break us or forge us into something stronger. The choice, as always, is ours. The key is to embrace adversity, to view challenges not as obstacles to be avoided, but as opportunities for growth. Just as the Roman legions learned from their defeats, so too must we learn from our failures. We must analyze our mistakes, identify our weaknesses, and use this knowledge to refine our strategies and strengthen our resolve. This requires a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths about ourselves, to acknowledge our shortcomings, and to take responsibility for our actions. It means developing a mindset of continuous improvement, a relentless pursuit of excellence that drives us to constantly push beyond our limits. The discipline forged in crisis is not merely about surviving the storm. It's about emerging from it stronger, wiser, and more resilient than ever before. It's about transforming adversity into an advantage, about using hardship as a catalyst for growth, and about forging an unbreakable mental framework that can withstand any challenge. This is the essence of psychological warfare, the art of mastering our own minds and using that mastery to overcome any obstacle in our path. It is the path to true self-mastery. The concept extends beyond grand historical narratives. It applies to the individual level as well. Consider the athlete who faces a career-threatening injury. The initial shock and despair can be overwhelming, threatening to derail years of dedication and sacrifice. But it is in these moments of crisis that true discipline is forged. The athlete must confront the reality of their situation, accept the limitations imposed by their injury, and then embark on a long and arduous journey of recovery. This requires a level of mental fortitude that few possess, a relentless commitment to the rehabilitation process, and an unwavering belief in their ability to return to their former level of performance. The athlete must endure countless hours of painful therapy, overcome setbacks and disappointments, and constantly push themselves to their physical and mental limits. It is through this process, through the crucible of injury and recovery, that the athlete's discipline is truly tested and ultimately strengthened. They emerge from the experience not only physically healed but also mentally tougher, more resilient, and more determined than ever before. They have learned the invaluable lesson that adversity is not an end but an opportunity, a chance to redefine themselves, to push beyond their perceived limitations, and to forge a discipline that can withstand any challenge. This is the power of a crisis, to reveal and refine the strength within. Discipline, therefore, is not a static quality but a dynamic process, constantly evolving and adapting to the challenges we face. It is not something we are born with but something we cultivate through conscious effort and unwavering commitment. It requires a willingness to confront our fears, to embrace discomfort, and to constantly push ourselves beyond our comfort zones. It demands brutal honesty with ourselves, an unflinching assessment of our strengths and weaknesses, and a relentless pursuit of self-improvement. It necessitates a strategic mindset, the ability to analyze situations objectively, to identify potential threats and opportunities, and to develop plans to achieve our goals. It calls for psychological resilience, the ability to bounce back from setbacks, to learn from our mistakes, and to maintain a positive attitude in the face of adversity. It requires unwavering self-belief, a conviction that we are capable of achieving our goals, even when the odds are stacked against us. The discipline forged in crisis is not merely about surviving, it is about thriving, about transforming challenges into opportunities, and about becoming the best version of ourselves. It is the foundation upon which we build our empires, both internal and external. It is the key to unlocking our full potential and achieving true self-mastery. The forging of discipline in crisis also hinges on the ability to reframe our perception of the situation. Instead of viewing a crisis as a purely negative event, we can choose to see it as a test of our character, an opportunity to demonstrate our resilience, and a chance to learn and grow. This requires a shift in perspective, a conscious effort to focus on the positive aspects of the situation, and a belief in our ability to overcome the challenges we face. By reframing the crisis, we can reduce the feelings of fear and anxiety that often accompany